Good afternoon, everyone. We're at the library here. It's just before 4 p.m. I've got this room for another 10, 15 minutes or so. I wanted to quickly discuss some things that have been happening in the context that I'm choosing to um, interpret those events. As I've mentioned to you before, um, this will be in our Shades of AI series. As I've mentioned to you before, I've tried to make my life as congruent as possible. You may notice that the things I'm building in my, personal brand, kind of, they don't completely integrate with Texas Movement International. I want Texas Movement to have, kind of a set systems, a series of systems that are kind of interconnected, really just use cases of the same methodology. So it's not going to be just like this broad, spread out conglomerate of anything like that. It's one philosophy, but in various different use cases. That's the terminology that I was given. That methodology can be applied. So we're working on the appropriate call to action, the appropriate offer, and packaging it and all that type of stuff. But I just want to make sure that I'm in line with my purpose overall. From a creation standpoint. But we live in a capitalist society where you need to exchange value for money. And so I've done my best to do that everywhere I've gone. And I believe Texas Movement and everything underneath that umbrella, s- you know, it meets that standard. So from uh, from a completion standpoint and from a authenticity standpoint, I'm very very pleased with what I've produced. Um, my uh, issue has been traffic and conversion. And that's where I run into the glass ceilings that I've spoken about several times, as far back as 2022 very publicly. And then, surprise, surprise, 6 months later, when I got some help from my mother, she was gone just like that. Um, but, those of you that know, there's another fire alarm that happened to my unit, ongoing eviction process that I tried to solve in December. They dragged it out in February. The car was towed. Many, many interactions with law enforcement, several fire alarms, several water shutoffs, a week plus without power. Um, uh, income reduced, job loss. I had to get on the SNAP program for food benefits. And my father is sitting, 20 minutes away in a six-bedroom, five-bathroom house, completely paid off. The only thing he pays each year are property taxes. And still felt the need to withhold an inheritance portion from me that I'm now pursuing via legal counsel internationally as if I don't have anything else to worry about. And all this was because, just like America, my financial autonomy, like the African American communities historically, is seen as such a threat to the status quo and such a threat to the ego of people that have lived their life chasing mediocrity. And unfortunately, I do have to include my father in that. But here's the distinction I want to make. Okay, for the young kids that eventually have these kind of conflicts, we need to model a template for proper confrontation and escalation when these things happen. I believe it's in James or something like that. You bring these matters up privately, then to two or three elders in your church, and then if that doesn't bear any fruit, then you need to go to the wider place. And I'm 38 years old, going on 39. At 35, you can run for president in this country. And at 35, I lost my mother. And on top of that, you can audit my history and how I have managed the financial needs of our family. Look at my personal financial history and see how much debt I've incurred to build up a business that I started in 2015. Prior to that, look how well I managed other people's businesses when I was placed in even a middle management position. And then, of course, when I was asked to do engineering, look at my reviews. And so it's not a matter of merit that is being questioned here. It's a matter of existence. And, you know, the one distinction I just want to make is that what you are seeing between me and my father is a difference of philosophical approach to the same problem. Okay. Um, Most first generation immigrants are not trained combat experts. They're not trained warriors or combatants. Usually, what happened is in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, in order to dilute civil rights, the highly educated Asian immigrants, and I'm going to include the East Asian and South Asian as one community, they were brought over here, whether they were doctors, professionals, a lot of South Indian professors made their way into the late 70s, early 80s into the academia field. Now, as you know, academia is the study of theory, not the study of practice. So, a career based off of that is a safe salary, benefits, and a controlled, lab-like, um, you know, place of work. There's not going to be a whole lot of different types of curveballs that are thrown at you in the field and things like that. You're in a theoretical environment. So you're not going to get the kind of, shut down corner on an island reactionary type of skill training that, Deion Sanders would be able to teach you, or, Champ Bailey or Darrell Revis or something like that. That is a second generation skill set. And so the two opposing ideologies clash in certain distinct areas of life and coming of age and family. So my job was to maintain the integrity of the patriarchal structure and the nuclear family unit because despite any personal grievances or personal disagreements I may have with leadership, and it was, legitimate leadership at that time. He married my biological mother and did all the appropriate things, and made sure that he handled his office of leadership in the church responsibly. And as I told you, I'd much rather prefer someone who does his job well and takes a few personal leeways and things like that versus the opposite. Okay, so there's no calling into question of office here. Okay, this is a personal discrepancy, personal disagreement. However, one of the things that's difficult for, elder people to do, and also white and Jewish America, it's difficult for them to do this with melanated cultures. It's very difficult for them to see us as intellectual peers. Because if you can see someone as an intellectual peer, you can shake their hand if you lose. And that's not something that these people were trained to do. And the funny part about it is they call us entitled and they call us classless when they are the ones, in fact, that preach that shake hands ideology after the loss of a fight. But even if there's a loss of an iota of ego, you'll notice that those rules go out the window. And that's what a lot of this retaliation has been since January of 2025. I was never supposed to survive the cutting of the brake lines on the Buick back in 2023. So my mother, she had her heart attack 2 months after Hero was founded. And then there was quite a bit of uproar after that in the community, which I think was unexpected for the mainstream community. And then in December, as I was preparing to take the exam to get a civil engineering position, which would give me substantial income, comfortable living, my brake line was cut and I almost swerved into oncoming traffic and I would have died that day if, the Lord hadn't been protecting me. And then I passed the engineering tech, exam, and they bumped me up to the assistant civil engineer exam. I didn't need that, but I started that position, had a 90-day review that went very well. So anytime I've been placed in any kind of situation, I've tried to do it well. And while I was an engineer, I was, building up Texas Movement Performance at Premier Fitness Solutions in Algonquin, ran by a Polish lady, and then eventually police would start to show up and park across the street, and then people would, look and see what I was typing on AI. Intelligence was talking to these people, and so on and so forth. I'm tired of it. Okay, so there's no need. The age of AI, is going to empower minority founders. It's going to empower, people that historically have been disenfranchised, and the people that are, the status quo doesn't like that. And that's the situation here. So this is part of our Shades of AI series. But the thing I want to reference is that even though that these proceedings have gotten to the legal stage, for the kids, second generation kids that have first generation frustrations, and you first generation people too, that if you're listening, I'm going to talk to you directly if your children cannot, you know, you're going to be held accountable for how you wielded authority and discipline and the stick, okay? Because God gives us old age just to remind us that we can be weakened once again. Okay, so yes, the Eastern traditions teach us to venerate our elders and things like that, and we wish to do that. We wish to do that, but the feminine characteristic of the theory-only academic, the lack of combat in our society, robs us. It really castrates us of our full masculinity. If you only live your life worshiping the white American woman as your ideal, you're going to start acting like one. And I notice a lot of that in our Kerala community. The men act like fully formed Caucasian women in their passive aggressiveness, in their backbiting, in their unwillingness to speak truth or be held accountable when they're in the wrong, and their unwillingness to apologize when they've created environments of absolute chaos and disarray. Okay, so as always, I'm going to try to reset properly and make sure that I am, conducting myself in the most dignified way. But the feminine irrationality of the um, people in my family seeking to have me displayed as some kind of caricature of myself, as some kind of mentally unstable individual, I am combating that narrative fiercely. And I am very sorry that I have to use Texas Movement Media's dignified platform to, be a band-aid for my own personal conflicts. That's not what it's about, which is why I'm trying to extrapolate this for the larger diaspora community. So for the Indian community, the Asian community, and all the South Asian and East Asian demographics within that umbrella, I hope you can use this as some kind of template for you. And as always, to the Black community and to the allied members of the Spanish-speaking community, I just want you to know I'm still trying to pull my weight. I want Hero to pull its weight, as well as Texas Movement. TexasMovement.com has been fully updated. We've been working on our SEO and AEO. We are learning all about how AI searchability is replacing what used to be Google. So we need to be making sure that we're updating our website code appropriately. And so I'm learning those languages. I have my GitHub repositories and all that nerd stuff, and I will, get the appropriate resources to get more educated on that. And for small business owners, if you guys have kind of lived in the Stone Age for a little while, you want to come into the more modern era, Texas Movement Consulting is the forum for you. And alexandermathai.com is available, and that will take you directly to consulting.texasmovement.com. You can check out my LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I will give you updates there regularly. But today's message in Shades of AI is just about reminding you that personal conflicts between a subordinate and leadership, they are allowed, and it should be done in the biblical standard. I know why Jesus has led us down in a number of ways, but there are good structures there that you can use as templates, until you tweak things for yourself better. Okay, so when we are in positions of authority, we must be having an open door policy, an open ears policy, so that when conflict arises, it doesn't need to go to the legal extreme, because that's silly. You can save a lot of money and peace of mind if you just interact with people like human beings, which is what I intend to do. But if you intend on treating me like a subordinate or subhuman, then of course I will have to find an alternative way to communicate. And that's unfortunately the stage we're at now. But blessings to all of you, and I hope everything continues to go well. And as we climb out of this valley, as the crows drop off of the eagle's wings, we will continue to celebrate together and give glory to our Father in heaven. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.